Hey, what's up guys? Going to do another knife review, this time on something extremely cheap. A lot of requests for cheapo knives. This one happens to be an MTech, and there's no real name for this model, it's just this 440 stainless steel. But I did Google the model number MT-422GY, and I found a couple different dealers that deal with wholesale knife stuff. This is one of those Chinese made knives that are just made in the thousands, probably hundreds of thousands. So they're pumped out left and right. You could find them in some places, like I said, mostly wholesalers. I found that they go anywhere from $5 to about $10, somewhere in that price range for this specific model. MTechs in general are usually under $20. They're not very expensive at all. They're very cheap knives. They are made in China, or as the blade says here when it focuses, handcrafted in China, USA design. From what I understand, this is one of Daryl Ralph's designs. Daryl Ralph is well known. He makes a lot of fantasy type daggers and such. I mean, if you ever order from Bud K or Smoky Mountain, you've seen a whole bunch of Daryl's stuff. Daryl's custom work is actually extremely nice, and he has some really nice battle songs too. But anyway, it is made in China. It's a cheapo knife. There's a flipper on the back. This one's a little stiff. Okay, I did get this new. I mean, it was a gift, but it was told that it was new to me. And there's actually wear on it, which I believe it's not the person lying to me. I believe it's just the quality, because I've gotten cheap knives brand new and they look like they're used. Mostly because this has the black coated blade here. Hopefully we can see this. There's lots of wear. I literally carry this knife for one day. So if this wears for me, that's pretty funky that it's coming off in one day, and I only use this to cut maybe 2 or 3 things. But more so on the flipper here, back of the flipper, you can see that black paint is coming off, and that's pretty much what it is. It's paint. It's not some kind of special coating or anything. It's just black spray paint. I'm sure it's on an assembly line. Goes to a big wall of black. But anyway, we have aluminum handles here. There are some texturing in here. It almost looks like it's a rubber insert, but it's not. Just part of the metal handle. It does actually feel good, the grip here. I like that. As far as design and aesthetics of the knife, I think it looks okay. It's not a bad looking knife. I really like the blade style and shape. Came decently sharp. Of course, the blade is crappy. It's not even just the steel. First thing I want to show is on the box it's advertised again as 440 stainless. Well, my problem with that is that there's a whole bunch of different kinds of 440 stainless. A good heat treated 440C stainless steel blade is totally acceptable to me. I've had many over the years. They're very good performing blades. It's a good compromise between, you know, rust resistance and edge holding capability and so forth. But my guess, and I would put money on it, that this is a 440A stainless steel blade, which is much softer. And not only that, it's probably not heat treated very well. Again, coming from China and not having, you know, a whole attention to detail and quality because they're pumping out so many of these at a time. I really don't feel that they're heat treating these properly. And I can tell you, not from this specific knife, but many, many knives like it. Now don't forget, I got into knives when I was 9 years old. I've had quite a bit of experience with cheapo knives for many years. I've literally had over 1,000 knives just like this. Cheap knives from China. I got them because they look cool. I showed them off to my friends. You know, that's what a lot of people do when they're young, when they're into knives. You know, 9, 10 years old, I didn't need an EDC blade, you know. When I started getting to Boy Scouts is when I started doing a little bit more quality knives. That's when I started getting into Victorinox knives, and I got a Boker top lock back in the day, and so forth. But, you know, for the most part, my collection was just that. It looked pretty in a display case. It was pretty cool when people looked at them. I got to show them off. I got to collect them. I didn't have to spend a whole lot of money, because being a kid, of course, I didn't have a lot of money for knives. But it definitely fit my niche back then. But now that I actually carry and use a knife every day, I'm a little bit more critical. And I do require certain things in my knives. The biggest thing is that I have a decent blade steel, so I can use them. I don't have to worry about them constantly getting dull, you know, or the edge rolling because it's so soft and it wasn't heat treated properly. So that's why I really don't like cheap knives. I still think there's a need for them. There's many professionals out there, like plumbers and electricians, that have knives just like this, and they have no problem with them. They don't know the difference. They've never held a $300 knife, you know. To them, this $5 knife is really good. They might tell their buddy, hey, you know, I went to such and such store and I picked up that knife for $6 and it's a great knife, man. You should get one. That happens all the time. And these are professionals, and they actually use their knives, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it just goes along the saying, ignorance is bliss. They just don't know the difference, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're okay with a $5 knife and it works for you, that is awesome. And I've said that before, and I'm jealous. I'm really jealous because I can't get a knife like this and just be totally excited about it. Another thing about it is, within the knife community, there's definitely ridicule, and this may be an awesome knife to you. You may get this from the store or buy it online and you say to yourself, you know what, this is a fantastic knife, but you can't really show it off to people who are in the knife community. You know, someone says, hey, you know, check this knife out, I just got a new Benchmade. It's awesome, it's a new Griptilian. And then you go, oh, look, I just got an MTech, check this one out. And they're going to go, an MTech? What a piece of junk. Even if you think it's awesome, you're going to get ridiculed for buying a cheap knife, which, to be honest, is completely unfair. But I just want to let you guys know, I mean, there's a lot of younger viewers watching this, and they have this exact same knife, or knives very similar to it. I just don't want you to feel like I'm putting it down. I do expect more out of a knife because I do use them, and I have a different level of standards that I have with knives. There's nothing wrong with cheap knives. I just want to stress that point. They're just not specifically for me, because I'm a knife enthusiast. But there's still nothing wrong with them. Like I said, they still cut stuff. They just don't cut as good as other knives, or they might not last as long as other knives. That's really the difference in price and quality. But anyway, I don't want to get too much into that. Specs on this one specifically, closed, we have 4.5 inches long. I would call that just a medium-sized folder. Maybe large if you have small hands. The blade is 3¼ inches, making it a 7 3/4 inch knife overall. It does have a flipper. As you can see, this one's a little stiff, so just with the flipper, I can't really get it out. But a little bit of wrist action, and it's no problem. Of course, if you don't want to use the flipper, we have ambidextrous thumb studs on here, which I like. Even the cheap knives, they do ambidextrous studs so that you can open it lefty or righty if need be. It is a liner lock. There's no real play up and down. I mean, there's a tiny bit, but nothing I would even complain about. Side to side, there is a little bit of play. And I want to talk about that pivot screw in just a second here, because yes, that is an adjustable pivot screw. Handles are aluminum. Overall weight on this, by the way, is just over 3 ounces. My scale showed 3.1. So, you know, medium weight. Not too heavy, not too light. Ergonomics for me, not good. Just the way it is. I mean, it feels like it could be good, but with my hand size, which is a large to extra large as far as gloves are concerned, to give you a comparison, my pinky digs right in here. There's a nice point here where this sweeps up, and it just, with a natural grip here, it catches my pinky every time, and it's super uncomfortable. I can't dig down hard into something when I'm cutting with it. I did try a bunch of cardboard cutting with this, and my pinky was getting very sore. In the reverse grip here, it's the opposite. It's my ring finger, and that hits the first finger choil, the end of it. So you can see that just digs right into the finger. Super uncomfortable. For, you know, to whip your knife out and cut one thing open, it's not a big deal. But if you're literally using your knife for a couple minutes in a row, it gets very sore, so I don't like that. Alright, let's talk about that pivot screw. When I first got this, I looked at it. I thought it was aesthetic, and it wasn't actually functional, and I couldn't actually rotate it, but because if you look at the back side here, through the clip, it's just the end of the screw. There's no screw head on it. So that's the back. This is definitely the front. So I took one of these little micro screwdrivers, and I tinkered with it, and I found out that it does move. It is actually a screw. Just a funky setup here. And again, it doesn't come with any kind of a tool to adjust this, no spanner. Hopefully you can see that, how it's moving. Let me actually come back to you because I'm almost at 10 minutes and I don't want my camera to shut off. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I was just talking about this pivot screw. And it is adjustable, but it's really crappy. And it's super soft metal, so every time I try to adjust this, I'm mushing the metal, it's being bent over, it's not good at all. You could probably see that once it starts focusing in. Don't like it. Some scratches on there. It's just not right. I don't have the specific tool that moves this, so I have to improvise, and I don't like that at all. The other thing is, because of the design here, I can't get a really good sturdy adjustment on this. Even when I try to tighten it real tight, it doesn't adjust very well. I just don't like it. It's definitely a downside. It's just not good at all. I wish they would have just went with something simple. The body screws on here are they take Allen keys. I call them hex keys. It doesn't really matter either way, but that's the type of tool you need for the 2 body screws. They obviously did this for looks. It just makes it super difficult for you, the average buyer, when you get this knife, because if you're buying this knife, you're probably not really into knives. I shouldn't say that. You're not really into expensive knives. Therefore, you probably don't have some kind of specialty tool set, and you're probably not going to know that that's even adjustable. Like I said, Joe Schmo plumber. He walks into Home Depot, buys a knife like this, and he gets it at home, whatever, and all of a sudden maybe it's too tight or too loose. He's not going to know that he can even adjust it. He's going to think it is what it is, and he'll have to just deal with it being uncomfortably loose or uncomfortably tight. So definitely a downside. Don't like that at all. Another thing with cheap knives is the detent is always weak. This one is almost non-existent. There's no detent, which means the blade is not held in. Now luckily this one's still new, it's a little stiff, but I would imagine with use it would get loose and probably open up in your pocket, which is not a good thing. Pocket clip I thought was okay. It's nothing special. I actually think it's a little ugly, but let me show you how it rides on my fake little pocket here. Rides nice and deep. It is easy to use, and I thought it was actually pretty comfortable in the pocket. I just don't like the way it looks that much. Now, it actually rides up a little bit higher, but not with these thick jeans. In my cargos, it sits like that. So it's a deep carry clip. And let's take a look at this. You can see it's situated for right-hand carry, tip down. And as we look, there are no other holes to swap the clip, so you're stuck with that position. Tip down, which I guess is a good thing, because if you carry this tip up, eventually it would open up and you would definitely not want to reach in your pocket like that. So worst case scenario, when your cheap knife eventually opens up and you go to reach down, it's harder to cut yourself. You could go in for change and come back up and cut yourself, but you probably won't have to worry about it because most likely your blade's not going to be sharp. Just how it is. It is a open design here. You just have these two standoffs or pillars, and then your handle scales. But yeah, it is what it is. You get what you pay for. I don't want to knock cheap knives because they do serve a purpose. Like I said, there's thousands of people out there who have knives just like this. They use them all the time for work and for personal use or whatever, and they really do not have a problem with it. It's just, the knife community, sometimes we're a little snobbish about stuff, and for good reason. I mean, my $200 or $300 knife does perform better than this $5 knife, but if we both need to open a box, we could probably do it. So, I mean, it can go either way. Opinions, well, you know what they're like. Everyone's got one. But my opinion is that I still think they serve a purpose. I don't think they're total junk. I don't think they're worthless. I think that if you're 13 years old and you don't have a paycheck, or a lot of money to invest in knives, and you can get a $5 knife and be happy with it, and use it for a couple little dinky things that you may need a knife for, there's really nothing wrong with that. I just don't review them very often because I do prefer higher end stuff. It's just how it is. But overall, I really, for a real cheap knife, I'll be honest, it's not that bad. I've seen a lot worse. So anyway, another issue I have with cheap knives is that they tend to get dull very quickly, as mentioned. And I've mentioned this before in a past video, but the sharper your knife is, the safer it is. And I know you might second guess yourself about that. You might think, what is he talking about? If it's sharper, it's going to cut you worse. Well, if you have a really sharp knife, and here, let me grab some cardboard. There we go. If you have a super sharp knife and you're going to cut a box open or something, it doesn't take much effort to cut it open. And by the way, you can see, even with cutting two things, this isn't super sharp anymore. Point proven. But anyway, when you have a dull knife or a knife that's not very sharp at all, what happens is instead of having a nice easy cut, there we go, that cut a little better. So you have a nice easy cut, you start struggling. You start putting more pressure on it and pushing harder, and then what happens? You end up slipping off. Now with a real sharp knife, usually you don't do that. You just cut through whatever you have to cut through. You got the dull knife, you start struggling with it, and that's where you have a better chance of slipping off or grazing something and actually cutting yourself or someone else. So that's why I really do like some better knives, because they actually will literally take a sharper edge. And that's what I'm looking for in my knife, to actually be able to take it out, cut something, and be done with it. I don't want to struggle. I don't want to have a hard time. I want to make my life as easy as possible. So if that means buying an $80 knife over a $5 knife, then so be it. It's worth it. Plus, like I said, I mean, if you're actually going to use these things pretty hard, they're not going to last. So instead of buying, I don't know, $25 knives, why don't you just buy that $100 knife and have it for just as long as the other 20 they're going to break? It's like anything else in life, you know. You fork over a little bit of extra money up front and it lasts a lifetime. It's so much worth it. It's so much better. So, anyway, I think I made my points. Cheap knives are okay for some people. I just don't like them. That's why I don't review them very often. But I do get tons and tons of requests for MTech specifically. Another one's Smith & Wesson knives, which are a little bit better than the MTechs, but still cheap. They're cheap for a reason. But overall, it's still a good knife for what it is. I can say I've seen worse. That's pretty much how I'll leave it. There are worse knives out there for $5. But anyway, that's my review of the MTech. I don't even know what model this is. I forgot already. It's in the title. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.